The stars had never looked so cold. Kong Doan stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel Horizon, watching the Velthari warships surround them like wolves circling wounded prey. There were 12 of them. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their dark hulls blocked out the starlight. Their weapons glowed with a sickly green energy that made his stomach turn. He was not supposed to be afraid. He was a military strategist, trained to see patterns in chaos, to find weakness in strength. But right now, standing in his simple gray uniform among diplomats in their fine clothes, he felt very small. The Velthari had given humanity a simple choice: surrender 3 colony worlds or die. Earth's leaders had chosen to talk instead. They believed in words. They believed that reason could defeat arrogance. Doan knew better. He had studied the Velthari for years. They were an old species, ancient and proud. They had conquered 800 star systems. They had never lost a war. They did not understand negotiation. To them, talking was what the weak did before they surrendered, but nobody had asked for his opinion. The doors to the observation deck slid open, and Ambassador Choi walked in with his team. The old man looked tired. He had been talking with the Velthari for 3 days now, and each day their demands grew larger and their patience grew smaller. "They want to meet one final time," Choi said to his aides. "Admiral Kessin himself will attend. They say this is our last chance." Doan turned from the window. "Ambassador, I advise against this meeting." Choi looked at him with surprise, as if he had forgotten Doan was there. "Advisor King, your concerns are noted, but we must try. Millions of lives depend on peace." "They don't want peace," Doan said quietly. "They want submission. And when we refuse to submit, they will make an example of us." The ambassador shook his head sadly. "You are young, Kung. You see enemies everywhere. The Velthari are civilized. They would not harm a diplomatic mission. The entire galaxy would condemn them." Doan wanted to argue. He wanted to tell the ambassador that the Velthari did not care what the galaxy thought. They had burned worlds before. They had ended entire species. But he saw the hope in the old man's eyes, and he could not find the words to destroy it, so he said nothing, and he followed them to the meeting hall. Admiral Kessin was already waiting when they arrived. He was tall, even for a Velthari. His skin was the color of gray stone, and his eyes were like 2 drops of liquid gold. He wore armor made of something that looked like black glass, and when he moved like a predator who had never known fear. Behind him stood 50 Velthari soldiers. Their weapons were not holstered. "Gil wasted my time," Kessin said. His voice was deep and cold. "For 3 days you have talked and talked. You have offered nothing. You have agreed to nothing. My emperor grows impatient." Ambassador Choi stepped forward with his hands open. "Admiral, please. We are a young species. We mean no disrespect to the Empire. We only ask for time to consult with our government, to find a solution that honors both our peoples." Kessin made a sound that might have been laughter. "Honor? You speak of honor?" He walked closer to Choi, towering over the old man like a mountain over a hill. "Your species has existed for the blink of an eye. You have no history, no culture, no power. You are nothing but animals who learned to build ships. And you dare speak to me of honor?" Doan felt his hands curl into fists. Beside him, the other humans shifted nervously. "We will not surrender our worlds," Choi said. His voice shook, but he did not step back. "We will defend our people. If you attack us, the Federation will respond." Kessin smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "The Federation fears us. They will send you their thoughts and prayers. They will make speeches. And then they will do nothing, because they know what we are capable of." He turned to his soldiers and spoke in the Velthari language. Doan did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. He understood the gesture. "Get down," he shouted. But he was too late. The Velthari opened fire. Green light filled the room. Ambassador Choi died first, his body crumbling like paper in a fire. The diplomats fell one by one, screams cut short by weapons that left nothing behind. Doan threw himself behind a fallen table. Energy blasts burned the air above his head. He could smell smoke and something worse, something that had once been human. An explosion rocked the ship. Then another. The Velthari were not just killing the delegation. They were destroying the entire vessel. Du-hun ran. He did not know where he was going. He only knew that he had to move, had to survive. The corridors were filled with fire and bodies. The ship groaned and screamed as it died around him. He found an escape pod by luck, or perhaps by fate. He climbed inside and hit the launch button just as the horizon broke apart behind him. Through the small window, he watched the pieces of the ship scatter into the void. He watched the Velthari warships turn and leave, their mission complete. They did not bother to search for survivors. They did not think there would be any. For a long time, Du-hun floated alone in the darkness. His pod had no weapons, no faster-than-light drive, only a small radio, and enough air for a few days. He thought about his sister Nari, who had died on a colony world when the Velthari came to demonstrate their power. He thought about his parents, who had never recovered from losing her. He thought about all the people who had just died around him. Good people who had believed in peace. And slowly, something cold and hard began to grow in his chest. It was not anger, not exactly. It was something deeper, something patient, something that would not stop until it was finished. He activated the radio. His voice was steady when he spoke. "This is Kong Do-an of the diplomatic vessel Horizon. The delegation is dead. The Velthari have declared war on humanity." He paused, looking out at the stars that suddenly seemed less cold. "They asked for war. I will give them one." The message flew through space, toward Earth, and somewhere in the darkness, a small ship changed its course to intercept his beacon. Her name was Yoon Hannah, and she had been waiting for someone like him. The ship was old and ugly, but it flew. Yoon Hannah had found it in a scrapyard 3 years ago. She had rebuilt it piece by piece with her own hands, turning junk into something that could outrun most patrol ships. She called it the Silent Wind, though Du-hun thought that was a strange name for a vessel that made so much noise. "You need to eat," Hannah said. Placing a bowl of rice in front of him, Du-hun did not look up from his screens. He had been reading for 6 months now. Reports, intelligence files, intercepted communications, everything he could find about the Velthari Empire. He barely slept. He barely ate. He only studied. "Not hungry," he said. Hannah pushed the bowl closer. "You're going to die before you get your revenge if you keep this up." He finally looked at her. She was not beautiful in the traditional sense. Her face was too sharp, her eyes too hard. She had scars on her hands from years of surgery, from the time when she had been a combat medic in the Federation fleet. Then the Velthari had attacked a hospital ship she was serving on. They had killed everyone except her. She never told him why they let her live. "I found something," Du-hun said. Hannah sat down across from him. "You always find something." He turned the screen to show her. "The Velthari 4th Fleet? They are the ones who destroyed the Horizon. They are currently stationed in the Keth sector, and they receive fuel from a depot on a small moon called Vosavin. So the depot is poorly defended. One patrol ship. A skeleton crew. They do not expect anyone to attack them, because no one ever has." Hannah leaned back in her chair. "You want to blow up a fuel depot?" "I want to hurt them," Du-hun said. "The Velthari have conquered for 300 years without real resistance. Their enemies surrender or die quickly. They have forgotten what it feels like to bleed slowly." She studied him for a long moment. "We're 2 people in a garbage ship. We can't fight a fleet. We don't need to fight a fleet. We need to make them afraid." He pointed at the screen. "1 depot. That's all. If we destroy it, the 4th Fleet loses its fuel supply for months. Their operations slow down. Their commanders have to explain the failure. Seeds of doubt are planted." Hannah was quiet. Then she smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "You're crazy. But I like crazy." They hit the depot 3 weeks later. Hannah flew them through an asteroid field to avoid detection. Du-hun had studied the patrol routes and found a gap of exactly 17 minutes when the moon was unobserved. They landed in darkness, planted charges on the fuel tanks, and left before anyone knew they were there. The explosion lit up the sector. The depot burned for days. The Velthary reported it as an accident, a malfunction, equipment failure. They did not want to admit that someone had attacked them. They could not imagine that anyone would dare. Doan smiled when he heard the report. "Let them believe it was luck," he said to Hannah. "Luck can happen again." Over the next few months, they began to build a crew. Park Jisoo came first. They found her on a station in the lawless border systems, selling stolen data to anyone who would pay. She was thin and pale, with eyes that never seemed to warm. She had spent 2 years in a Velthary labor camp before escaping. She did not talk about what had happened to her there, but sometimes she woke up screaming in the night. "Why should I help you?" she asked when Doan made his offer. "Because you want them to suffer," he said simply, "and I can give you that chance." She joined them that night. Beak Taiho came next. He was a former Federation Marine, big and strong and steady. He had been dishonorably discharged for refusing to abandon a human colony during a Velthary attack. He had stayed to fight, and he had saved 300 people before the rescue ships came. The Federation called him a criminal. The people he saved called him a hero. "I don't follow orders well," he warned Doan. "I don't give stupid orders," Doan replied. Taiho laughed and shook his hand. The last to join was Im Suji. She was young. Barely 22, with quick hands and a quicker mind. She could build weapons from scrap, computers from junk, hope from nothing. Her family had died on the same colony where Doan's sister had been killed. She had been hiding in a basement when the Velthary came. She had listened to her parents die above her. "I want to make things that hurt them," she told Doan. "Big things. Things that burn." "Then welcome to the crew," he said. They became a family of sorts. Broken people, held together by shared pain and shared purpose. They did not always like each other. Jisoo was cold and difficult. Taiho was too protective. Suji was reckless. Hannah and Doan argued constantly about strategy and caution and risk. But when it mattered, they moved as one. They hit a communications relay next, then a transport carrying Velthary officers, then a weapons shipment meant for the border forces. Each attack was small, but each attack was successful. They struck and vanished like ghosts. The Velthary still reported accidents and malfunctions. But rumors began to spread among their soldiers. Something was hunting them. Something that could not be caught. Doan spent his nights planning and his days training. He taught his crew everything he knew about the Velthary, their tactics, their weaknesses, their pride. He learned their language so he could intercept their communications. He studied their history so he could understand their fear. "They've never faced guerrilla warfare," he explained to his crew one night. "Their wars are quick, overwhelming force followed by surrender. They do not know how to fight an enemy who refuses to face them directly. So we never face them directly," Hannah said. "Never. We bite and run. We make them chase shadows. We cost them more to hunt us than we take from them." He looked at each of them in turn. "This will not be quick. This will not be glorious. We may fight for years before we see real results. But empires are not destroyed by single battles. They are destroyed by 1,000 cuts that never heal." Ow. Suji raised her cup. To 1,000 cuts. The others raised their cups too. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Velthary Fourth Fleet began to notice that their luck had changed. 18 months changed everything. Doan's crew had grown from 5 to 40. Humans at first, then others. Species the Velthary had conquered long ago. Species who had forgotten how to fight until they saw that fighting was possible. They came in ones and twos, bringing their skills and their hatred. Joining a war that grew larger with each passing month, they operated from an asteroid they called the Wound. It was hidden deep in a dead system that the Velthary had stripped bare centuries ago. No one came here. No one looked. It was the perfect place for ghosts to rest between hauntings. The attacks never stopped. Supply lines, communication stations, fuel depots, officer transports. They never struck where the Velthary were strong. They only struck where they were weak. And weakness, Doan had learned, was everywhere if you knew how to look. The Velthari began to talk, not officially, not in reports. But soldiers whispered to each other in the dark corners of stations and ships. They spoke of a ghost. A human who appeared without warning and vanished without trace. They gave him a name in their own language. The Hollow Man. Doan heard the name from an intercepted communication and felt nothing. Names were tools. Fear was a weapon. If the Velthari wanted to make him a monster, he would use that. Admiral Kessin did not believe in monsters. He had been given command of the hunt 6 months ago. It was supposed to be an easy assignment, a minor task beneath his dignity. Find one human, kill him, return to real war. But the human would not be found. The human kept striking, kept vanishing, kept making Kessin look foolish. He is one man, Kessin told his commanders. One insignificant creature from an insignificant species. How can you not catch him? His commanders had no answers. They only had excuses. The human was lucky. The human had help. The human knew things he should not know. Kessin did not accept excuses. He studied the attacks, looking for patterns. The Hollow Man always seemed to know where the patrols would be. He always seemed to know which routes were safe. He struck at exactly the right moment and left, exactly before reinforcements arrived. Someone was feeding him information. Kessin began to investigate his own forces. He found 3 officers who had been bribed by border smugglers. He found a communications technician who had been selling data to pirates. He executed them all as traitors, but the attacks continued. The information was not coming from inside his fleet. It was coming from the Hollow Man himself. He was intercepting Velthari communications. He was reading their messages as easily as they read their own. This should not have been possible. Velthari encryption was unbreakable. No inferior species had ever decoded it, but the human had learned their language. He had studied their codes. He had found the patterns that they thought were invisible. Kessin felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt uncertain. Duhan knew that Kessin was hunting him. He had read the orders. He had tracked the fleet movements. He understood that the admiral was not like the other commanders he had faced. Kessin was smart. Kessin was patient. Kessin would not give up, so Dohan decided to use that against him. He planted false intelligence. A report carefully designed to look like a mistake that suggested the Hollow Man's base was hidden in the Vorn Nebula. The nebula was unstable, filled with radiation and gravitational anomalies. It was the last place anyone would build a base. But Kessin was desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. The admiral took 3 warships into the nebula. They searched for days, pushing deeper and deeper into the clouds of gas and dust. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. And when they tried to leave, they discovered that the nebula had shifted around them. One ship was caught in a gravity well and crushed. Another was torn apart by radiation storms. The 3rd, Kessin's flagship, barely escaped. 3,000 Velthari soldiers died in that nebula. The largest single loss the Empire had suffered in over a century, and everyone knew who was responsible. The Emperor was not pleased. For the first time in 300 years, the Velthari public learned that their military was losing. Not to a great enemy, not to another empire. To one human and his band of rebels, unrest began to spread. Citizens questioned their leaders. Soldiers questioned their commanders. The myth of Velthari invincibility, the foundation upon which their entire civilization was built, began to crack. Hannah found Doan alone on the observation deck of the Wound that night. He was staring at the stars, his face unreadable. "Should be celebrating," she said. "We just killed 3,000 of them." "I know." His voice was quiet. She sat down beside him. "You're not fighting a war, are you? You're not trying to defeat their military." He looked at her. For a moment, she saw something behind his careful mask. Something tired. Something sad. "No," he said. "I'm dismantling their belief that they cannot lose. That belief is the only thing holding the Empire together. When it breaks, they will tear themselves apart." She was silent for a long time. "That's a dangerous game. You're not just killing soldiers. You're destroying a civilization. They destroyed mine first." He turned back to the stars. Or they tried to. They killed my sister. They killed the ambassador. They killed everyone on the horizon. And they expected us to bow down and accept it because they were stronger. And now? Now they are learning that strength is not enough. He stood up, and his voice hardened. I will not stop until every Velthri soldier fears the dark, until their empire crumbles from the inside, until they understand that you should never ask humanity for a war. The next morning, Emperor Voreth made an announcement that echoed across 800 star systems. Kongdoan was declared the greatest enemy of the Velthri Empire. A bounty was placed on his head, equal to the wealth of an entire planet. Doan heard the announcement in his small quarters, surrounded by his crew. When it was finished, Suji let out a low whistle. Afraid of you, she said. Good. Doan's eyes were cold. They should be. The galaxy now knew his name. And the real war was about to begin. 3 years of war had changed the galaxy. The Velthri Empire, which had stood unshaken for centuries, was breaking. Not quickly, not dramatically, but breaking all the same. In the outer systems, species that had been conquered generations ago were rising up. Governors were assassinated in their beds. Military commanders refused postings to the border regions. Soldiers deserted rather than face the Hollow Man. Doan watched these reports from the wound with something that was not quite satisfaction. He had wanted to hurt them. He had succeeded. But the cost had been higher than he had expected. 17 of his people had died in the past year. Good people, brave people, who had believed in him and followed him into the darkness. He remembered every name, every face, every last message. Hannah said he was carrying too much weight. She said the dead would understand. But Doan could not let go. He was afraid that if he stopped remembering, he would become something he did not want to be. Earth had officially disowned him. The government released statements condemning his actions, calling him a terrorist, demanding that he surrender himself to Federation justice. But secretly, through channels that Hannah had built over years of working in the shadows, resources kept flowing. Weapons, medicine, intelligence. The people who spoke against him in public supported him in private. It was enough. It had to be enough. The mission to the Velthri supply station was supposed to be routine. Suji and Taiho would go in, plant the charges, get out. They had done it dozens of times before, but this time, something went wrong. Doan was monitoring the operation from the wound when he heard Taiho's voice break through the static. They knew we were coming. It's a trap. Suji's been hit. His blood went cold. Get her out. I can't reach her. They've got her surrounded. I'm pinned down. Gunfire crackled in the background. Doan, they're going to take her. The line went dead. For a long moment, Doan could not breathe. Suji, the youngest of them. The one who still smiled sometimes, who still believed that they could win without losing themselves. The Velthri would not kill her quickly. They would make her suffer. They would make her talk. And when they were finished, they would broadcast her death as a warning. He could not let that happen. Hannah found him in the hangar, preparing a shuttle. What are you doing? Going to get her. That's suicide. They'll be expecting you. He turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Fear. Not for himself, but for the young woman who had trusted him. I don't care. She grabbed his arm. Doan, listen to me. If you die, everything ends. The resistance dies with you. Every sacrifice, every death, every victory becomes meaningless. If I leave her behind, we become them.
Yes.
His voice cracked. We don't abandon our people. That's what makes us different. Hannah stared at him. Then she let go of his arm and walked to the weapons locker. She pulled out a rifle and checked the charge. Then I'm coming with you, she said. They found Taiho first. He was wounded, barely conscious, hidden in a maintenance shaft near the station's outer hall. Jisoo, who had insisted on coming despite her own injuries, patched him up enough to move. They took her to the central holding block, Taiho said through gritted teeth. 6 guards. Maybe more. There were 12. Doan killed 4 of them before they knew he was there. Hannah killed 3 more. Jisoo, working from a terminal she had hacked, sealed the doors and cut the lights. In the darkness and confusion, Doan became the monster the Velthri had named him. He found Suji in a cell, chained to the wall. They had already started hurting her. Her face was swollen and bloody, her arm bent at a wrong angle. But she was alive. She was alive. "I knew you would come," she whispered as he broke her chains. "Always," he said. The escape was brutal. More guards arrived. Jisoo took a blast meant for Hannah and lost her left arm below the elbow. Taiho carried Suji on his back while firing with one hand. They fought through corridors filled with smoke and screaming alarms. Somehow, impossibly, they made it to the shuttle. Hannah flew them out through a storm of weapons fire. The shuttle's hull was torn open in 3 places. The engines failed twice. But she kept them flying, kept them alive, till they reached the safety of open space. Back at the wound, the doctors worked through the night. Jisoo's arm could not be saved, but she would live. Taiho's wounds were serious, but not fatal. Suji would need months to recover. She would recover. Doan sat alone in the corridor outside the medical bay, covered in blood that was not his own. Hannah found him there as the artificial dawn began to light the asteroid's interior. "We almost lost everything tonight," she said quietly. "I know. Was it worth it?" He thought about that question for a long time. "Yes," he finally said, "because now they know something about us that they didn't know before. They know that we will come for our people, no matter the cost, no matter the risk. And that makes us more dangerous than any weapon." 2 weeks later, Jisoo discovered something while decrypting captured files. Something that changed everything. Emperor Vorith was dying. A disease that the Velthri medical science could not cure. He had perhaps a year left, maybe less. And his heirs were already fighting over the succession. The Empire's strength was an illusion, a show put on to hide the chaos beneath. The outer systems were in open rebellion. The military was stretched too thin. The economy was failing under the weight of a war that was supposed to have ended years ago, and at the center of it all sat a dying emperor. Holding his crumbling domain together through nothing but fear and force of will, Dohan looked at the report. And for the first time in 3 years, he saw the end. "We need to broadcast this," he said. "Every system. Every world. We need to show the galaxy that the Velthri are not invincible." "The only way to reach every system is through the Imperial Broadcast Network," Jisoo said. "And that's on the throne world," Doan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Then that's where we're going." Keth Prime was beautiful in a terrible way. The throne world of the Velthri Empire hung in space like a dark jewel. Surrounded by rings of defense platforms and patrol fleets, billions of Velthri lived on its surface. From here, emperors had ruled 800 star systems for centuries. From here, the orders had come that killed Doan's sister. That destroyed the horizon. That started a war the Empire never expected to lose. Doan stood at the window of the captured diplomatic shuttle, watching the planet grow larger. His crew was small now, just 5 of them. Hannah at the controls. Jisoo at the communications station, her new mechanical arm gleaming in the low light. Taiho checking his weapons for the 100th time. Suji still healing, but refusing to stay behind. Working on the signal amplifiers that would make their broadcast possible, and Doan, carrying the weight of everyone who had died to bring them here. Their plan was simple in theory. Land at the diplomatic port using stolen credentials. Reach the central broadcast tower. Upload the evidence of the Emperor's weakness. Let the galaxy see the truth. In practice, everything could go wrong. The landing was smooth. The credentials worked. The guards at the port barely looked at them, too busy dealing with the chaos of an empire falling apart. Doan led his team through the streets of the capital. Moving like shadows through crowds of Velthri, who had no idea that their world was about to change, they reached the broadcast tower just as the sun was setting. The building was tall and slender, rising into the orange sky like a needle of black metal. Inside, technicians worked at stations that controlled every official broadcast in the Empire. Jisoo hacked the security systems from a terminal in the maintenance tunnels. Suji planted amplifiers at 3 key junction points. Taiho stood guard, his scarred face calm and steady. Dohan and Hannah climbed toward the central control room. They were one level away when Admiral Kessin found them. He stepped out of the shadows like he had been waiting there all along. His golden eyes gleamed in the dim light. His black armor was polished and perfect. Behind him stood a squad of elite soldiers, weapons raised. "The Hollow Man," Kessin said. His voice echoed in the empty corridor. "I knew you would come here eventually. I have been waiting for months." Doan stopped. Hannah raised her weapon, but the soldiers already had them surrounded. "You have caused me a great deal of trouble," Kessin continued. He walked closer, studying Doan like a scientist studying an interesting insect. 3 years. Countless resources. My reputation, my career, all damaged by one human who refused to die. "Sorry to disappoint you," Dohan said. Kessin made that sound again, the one that might have been laughter. "You are not what I expected. You are small, weak. I could break you with one hand." He tilted his head. "And yet you are still fighting. Your body is failing. I can see it in the way you move. You have been running too long, hurting too much. How are you still standing?" Doan thought about that question. He thought about his sister's smile. He thought about Ambassador Choi's hope. He thought about everyone he had lost and everyone who was counting on him. "'Cause he made it personal," he said. "And humans don't forget. We don't stop. We carry our dead with us until the debt is paid." Kessin's eyes narrowed. "Poetic, but meaningless. You are one man. I am an admiral of the Velthari Empire. This ends now." He moved faster than Doan expected. Velthari reflexes, Velthari strength. His hand closed around Doan's throat and lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. "Any last words?" Kessin asked. Duhan could not breathe. The world was going dark at the edges. But he managed to smile. "Look behind you." Hannah hit Kessin with everything she had. She was smaller than him, weaker than him, but she had spent 3 years fighting creatures stronger than herself. She knew where to strike. She knew how to hurt. Cass' son dropped Doan and turned to face her. They fought in the narrow corridor, human and Velthari, medic and admiral. Hannah was fast, but Kessin was faster. She was skilled, but he was stronger. She knew she could not win. She had known from the moment she attacked, but she did not need to win. She only needed to give Doan time. Kessin's blade caught her in the chest. She fell, blood spreading across the floor, her eyes still defiant, even as the light left them. Doan screamed. The sound was not human. It was something older, something primal, something that came from a place where grief and rage became the same thing. He hit Kessin from behind while the Admiral was still, pulling his blade free. He hit him with a weapon he had taken from a dead soldier. He hit him again and again until Kessin stopped moving. Then he ran. The control room was just ahead. Jisoo had already breached the systems. All he had to do was upload the files. His hands shook as he worked. Hannah's blood was still on his fingers. But he did not stop. He could not stop. The broadcast began. Across 800 star systems, screens flickered. The Emperor's face appeared, thin and weak, nothing like the powerful ruler the propaganda showed. Medical reports scrolled past. Intelligence documents. Proof of rebellions crushed and failures hidden. The truth raw and undeniable. About an empire built on lies, the myth of Velthari supremacy. Shattered in an instant, Doan slumped against the console as alarms began to wail throughout the city. He did not care. He had done what he came to do. The Emperor died within weeks. Some said illness. Some said shame. It did not matter. Without him, the succession dispute became a civil war. Systems declared independence. Fleets turned on each other. The Empire, which had stood for centuries, crumbled into 1,000 pieces. Doan returned to Earth quietly. He refused medals. He refused fame. He wanted only silence and time to grieve. 10 years later, An old man walked through a memorial garden on Earth. His hair was gray. He leaned on a cane. His body had never fully healed from everything he had put it through. A child nearby tugged her mother's sleeve. "Who is he, Mom?" The mother looked at the old man and smiled sadly. "He's the man who reminded the galaxy that you should never ask humanity for a war." Doan stopped at a simple stone monument. The names of the Horizons delegation were carved into it. Ambassador Choi, the diplomats, the crew, all the people who had believed in peace. He placed a white lily at the base, his sister's favorite flower. Then he walked away into the quiet afternoon. Carrying his dead with him, they had wanted to see what one human could do. Kong once showed them, and the galaxy would never forget.